So hey guys, welcome to the SAP UI5 training. So till our last class we have seen the concept of named model. We have seen how do we perform the binding using the named model. So as we have also seen, it's just a type of it's not a type of model, rather it's just a concept, guys. So we have to understand this part here. Now how do we perform the binding with the named models? We have to see here the name that we give to the model. We have to add a greater than symbol after the model name. Then we have also seen certain questions. Is it possible to have multiple models in an SAP UI5 project? So we have got to see, we have created two different models. We have seen how we have connected those models. We have seen the binding of those models. Also then we had another question which talks about how does the UI5 framework understands the binding. So we have given an example. I've shown you the example that we perform the naming of those models. That's how the concept of named model comes into picture. Now I'll show you today how do we perform the binding, aggregation binding. We have yesterday seen the property binding with the named model. So let us today see the aggregation binding. I'll just show you in the Eclipse IDE. I'll share the Eclipse IDE now. You could see here, yesterday we created model 2. You could see here model 2. There was a model 1, a JSON model. There is another model that we have created yesterday, that is of model 2, model data2.json. This is the JSON file that we have created over here. Now, let me just delete the dummy files which are there. Okay. Now let me just show you. This is the model that we have, model data2.json. So I'm going to show you today how do we perform the aggregation binding. How do we perform the aggregation binding with named models. So this is my model 2. I have given the name to the model. You have seen here in the example. You follow the same 3-step methodology for creating any model. So I created an object of a model. I have loaded the data here. So creating a model object, loading the data, and then binding at the application level. These 3 steps, step 1, 2 and 3. At the third step, only difference that we could see here in the normal model definition or a declaration and a named model declaration is we give a name here. We pass a second parameter here. So this is the second parameter, my second model. This can be any name, guys. Any name you can provide here. So I provided my second model. This is a name, a customized name that I'm going to use over here. Now let me show you when we performed the property binding with the named model. You might have seen here we performed the property binding here. You could see here the property binding. So I have created a property binding here with the named model, my second model, and we have seen that in the output as well. For this particular text field where the employee name in the simple form, I'm getting the value from the named model and this particular path. So you could see here in my index.html file. Let me just refresh it and let's see what output does it show. You could see here, guys, it shows me the employee name. See the binding that it has performed. You can see here the binding that it has performed, and this has popped up the data from this named model. Okay, now I'll show you how do we perform the aggregation binding. Now this is a case where we are hard coding the array index number, but when we have a huge amount of data, we need not remember which is the array index number. So in that scenario we would be using this aggregation binding. So let me just show you how do we perform here. For that, let me just delete this named model. Let me bring my application back to its original form, how it was. So we were doing the binding with the property called as emp name. Here we were doing the binding with the property called as emp number. Here we were doing the binding with location of the employee. Now let me just show you here. I'm going to bind this particular simple form. Okay. Now let me just see before binding the simple form whether there is any aggregation for binding that. because in the table basically you use aggregation binding for the controls which can have multiple elements inside. For example, drop downs, list controls, table controls. So let me just see if we have any aggregation for simple form. Otherwise we will see here the aggregation binding with the named model in a table. So for that, let me go to the SAP UI5 SDK. Let me just open SAP UI5 SDK. Let me open the older version. Here let me try to search for the simple form control. Now let me just search for the simple form control over here. Under API reference, I'll just search for simple form. Let me see if we have, we have the simple form SAP UI commons form, SAP UI layout.form. So let me search here. We are using SAP UI commons.form.simple form. So let me go to SAP UI commons library, and this is the simple form. Let me get into the constructor of the same. This is the constructor. Let me click on this hyperlink. We do not have anything out here. That means we have to go to the parent class of this particular class. So the parent class again brings me back to the same SAP UI layout.form. So this is the parent class for this simple form, SAP UI.commons.form.simple form. Now let me try to search what are all the properties and aggregations. So we have the aggregation here called as content. We have an aggregation called as a content here, but I believe let's try to see it with a control where we can embed as part of that control, because this content will allow any type of control. Say this SAP UI core.element, it will allow you multiple types of controls. But when we say the aggregation binding, when we take example of aggregation binding, so in that case we see, for example, if it is a table control or a list control or even a drop down, the elements inside that control will be of the same type. So let me try to stick to this particular scenario for your understanding of this concept, and then we can try out with the different ways, the different techniques of doing so. So when we go to this particular control, SAP UI.table control, you see here we have the similar types of control. Say we have even the rows, we have columns. So the elements, when we are putting multiple elements of the same type, inside a control, so let me perform the aggregation binding using the named model in the table instead of using this. So let me just go back. I'll just uncomment the table yesterday which I had commented, just to show you as an example. I'm just uncommenting this table. It's the same table. Let me refresh the web browser and see how does it come. Does it break my application? I'm not able to see my table. Can anyone tell me what is that missing? Why am I not able to see my table? Is there something missing, guys? Is there something missing that I should be looking upon? That I should look upon here? Anyone? Should I perform something here? Why my second table is not written? Absolutely, Ramya. Perfect. Now here I have not passed in the written parameter. I have not passed in oTable1. So let me just pass that oTable1 object. oTable1. Let me just pass the object of that particular table in the written parameter here. Let me go to the index.html in my browser. Let me refresh it, and here we see, guys, here we can see the other table coming up. Now let me just open that in a web browser. So here we go. It opens up in a web browser. Let me just show you here. Okay. Now you could see here, first table is the fruits table, which we have done a binding with the default model. Guys. Now this table I am going to bind using the named model. Here we are able to see some data. Let me just remove that binding. I believe we are already performing some sort of binding here already. Yes, we are performing a binding here. Great. Now guys, here I just wanted to show you step 1. How do we use that named model binding here? So you could see here the name model which I am removing here. This is for just for your understanding. So we are aware till this point, right, everyone? We are aware till this point. We know how do we create a table. This is my table. Now after creating the table, in the columns aggregation, I am having my column. These are multiple columns that I have created inside the table, and I have done the aggregation binding with the rows. I am doing the rows aggregation binding, so it should be like bind rows, or it can be aggregation binding. So if I use bind rows, I could write the syntax as o table 1 dot bind rows. This is another way of binding, guys, and I just pass here the entity set name employees. This was my second way. Now I'm just gonna show you here. I'm doing the aggregation binding with employees. This is the entity set in my second model. You can see here model data2.json. In this file you could see what is the entity set name, guys. What is the entity set name? Anyone? What is the entity set name here? EMP name, EMP number, location, or employees? What is the entity set name in this JSON model? Wait, that's employees. Now this entity set name, I have performed the binding here, the aggregation binding using this entity set name here. We know that we have created the object of this particular model here in my controller, as I have shown you in our previous classes. So I have created here the second model. The name of that second model is my second model. Now guys, carefully see here how am I going to perform the aggregation binding using the named model. Just focus here, guys, carefully. I am going to perform the aggregation binding here using the named model. This is the named model, my second model. I just take up this named model here, my second model. And guys, the same concept, when we are using the named models, we have to put a greater than symbol after the name of the model. So say my second model greater than symbol and then forward slash followed by the entity set name of that model. Now this is the step 1. You can perform this concatenation. Yesterday I told you I used the term concatenation. I am just concatenating this particular model name with the entity set. So this is what we have to do. This you can perform even in the controller here when you are setting up the model. You can even perform this even in the element binding. You can even use that in the element binding. Now here I am going to show you here that once you put the named model here, what is the next step? Only 2 steps, guys, when you are using a named model. Step number 1, in the bind aggregation, pass the second named model name here. Step number 1, pass the named model in the aggregation binding here. Step number 2, you have to pass the named model here, my second model greater than symbol, and the property name here, guys. This is the step 2 and the last step when we are using the named model. You have to pass the model name here. Where am I writing that? What type of binding is it? A question to everyone. What type of binding is it? Is it element binding? Is it aggregation binding, or is it an property binding? Property binding. Great. So in the property binding also I am passing the name of my named model. So remember that it's not only that you pass the name of the model in the bind aggregation API, you have to pass the name of the model even in the property binding here. It will not alone suffice, guys. Here it says bind aggregation, so it will be performing the binding with this particular model and this entity set, but here we need to pass the name of the named model. We have to pass the name of the named model. So I pass here my second model and then a greater than symbol followed by location. So I have just bound all these 3 columns. Right? Now let me just show you. I'll refresh the web browser. and you could see here the binding will be still there. The binding will be still there. Let me just show you here. Just remove this named model, save it, refresh the web browser and see the difference, guys. See the difference here. You see in the second table, you see here in the second table here, in the second table there is no data. I'm just refreshing the web browser. You could see here in the Google Chrome there is no data in the second table. Now I'm just gonna perform the named model aggregation binding using the named model. So what am I going to do here? I'm just going to write in our normal aggregation binding, I'm just going to write here my named model and then a greater than symbol, and after that we follow the same path as we are following in the default models. Now I have just put here the name model. Let me refresh the web browser and you could see the data will be bound to this table. You could see here the data is bound to this table. Now the data is coming. You could see the data being popped up here. In this particular table the data is visible. Now as we have seen the named model aggregation binding using the named model, now it is a time to move on to the resource model concept, guys. Resource model. What is a resource model? We have seen the JSON model. We have to understand what is a resource model. Now when you see here your Fiori app, you create any Fiori application, you create any SAP UI5 app, any custom SAP UI5 app, any Fiori like app or any SAP Fiori app, you could see that particular app will not be limited only to one particular region having one language or to a one particular continent. That particular application can be used worldwide. But in that case, you create an application using English as a language. You have your controls also. This is a high level programming language. You have your controls which are easily readable. You can understand this code. So this coding anyways we are going to do in English. But what about the content of the app? Say this is my app. If you see here, we are passing the label name as employee name, employee number, location, all of that in English. Now your app will be used in China. How would your user use that? Guys, trust me, China is a country where people are adamant to use English as their primary language. Even though you try to deliver an app to them in English language, they would say, I need this app in Chinese. I want to see these particular names, these labels in Chinese. This app can be used even in Germany. They would say, I want the language to be German. It can be used, in Korea. It can be used even in Russia. It can be used anywhere, any part of the country. How would you keep on changing your app? Is it advisable to keep changing the text of your app for different countries? Even you forget about, the different geographies or the continents and countries. Let's talk about India. Let's talk about our country. Say you are using this Fiori app in Andhra. Say you have people who say, okay, I want this app in Telugu. I want to see this app in Telugu. I don't want to see it in English. Say a Chennai user, a Tamil Nadu user, he or she says, I want to see this app in Tamil. A user from Bihar, he says, no, I want to see it in Braj. I want to see it in a different. I want to see the text coming in a Devanagari script. I don't want to see it in English. Any North Indian, you take off any state, any Eastern state, any Western, any Southern state. Everyone demands the application in their own custom language. How would you suffice that requirement? For such scenarios comes the concept of resource model, guys. Resource model, I call it as internationalization. When I say internationalization, I write here an abbreviated form of that called as I18N. Now you could see here I18N. This I18N is nothing but a naming convention used by SAP, or it's actually a web-based naming convention. You use .NET, you use any type of platform, any language, Any web-based language, you would be aware of this term I18N. Now this I and N, these are the initial and the ending characters of this internationalization, wherein it is believed that there are 18 characters, there are 18 alphabets. That's the reason they put it as I18N. This is the history behind this, using this term I18N. So this term says internationalization of my app. My application can be used irrespective of any city, any state, any country, any geography, any continent, anywhere. It can be used in your own language. Now when I say in own language, is it something like automatically this app will become in that language? No. We as developers, as Fiori developers or as UI5 consultants, we need to make sure what the requirement comes in from a customer or a client in our projects. We have to understand that in which all locale or which all geographies or which all countries or languages this particular app has to be designed. The source code of this app is going to be same. We cannot create 100 such Fiori applications, the same Fiori applications in 100 languages. No, not recommended at all. So what we do, we have brought in this concept. This concept has been brought in by SAP as resource model. Following the MVC design pattern, it gives you the flexibility to only modify your resource models and make your application available in any language to any country, any user. So this resource model is, guys, we create an I18N file. So let me just show you that file. I'll go to Eclipse. Now let me show you this app. Okay, now this is my app which is currently here. Let me try to create an I18N folder first. Okay, I'm just trying to follow the standard naming conventions and the folder structure of SAP. In the web content folder, I create a new folder called as I18N. I click on finish. You could see my folder here. I again right click on this I18N folder and let me create a file. Guys, carefully see here what am I doing. I enter the file name as i18n.properties. I create the file name as i18n.properties. This is the default syntax, but you could name it as anything, guys. That is up to you, because once you name it, then you have to again do a binding. That time you can create any type of name. You have to use the same file, but it is recommended to use these standard naming conventions. Again, a question that might be asked: can you rename this I18N? Yes, we can, but it is recommended to have this folder and this file name, something like I18N, and then we put the extension here as .properties. Okay, this is a properties file, I18n.properties. Let me just copy this file name and put in the PPT for your reference. So this resource model is, it is an internationalization concept. The file name I put up here as I18n.properties. Okay, this is a generic file name. Okay, when I say generic file name, it follows the generic. Here you can put your, what is your default language. Say my default language is English. I can put here the text in English. So I just click on now finish. Once I create the file called as i18n.properties, I click on finish. Once I click on finish, you see my file here in my Eclipse IDE. Now I will create some variables. I'll create some variables here. Say xtit, this is for title, underscore. Say I'm going to create this variable for emp name, employee name. I can write here employee equal to employee name. Then I create another variable xtit. This is a title or a label. You can just use it as emp number. So I put it as emp no, and then after equal to, I write the value that I want to show to the users. So I call it as employee ID, and then I use a third variable xtit underscore loc, location. So I just put it as the description of that variable as employee location. Now I save it. This see here, this is one of the simplest files, guys. In the SAP UI5 projects, this is one of the simplest files. you would love and enjoy to work on this file. It doesn't include a lot of semantics, lot of syntax, nothing. You just have to know how to write a variable. This can be any variable, guys. I'm just using a standard naming convention of tit for title, this xtit for title, and then I write the variable name here, say employee name. It is for proper easy identification. You can even put it as xtit aed1, something like that, aed1 or something. So it depends on what is your requirement. If you can easily identify what is aed1 as employee name in your source code, you can use this, but it is recommended you put a similar sort of name what you are going to present here, the abbreviated form of the text you are going to display on the app, on the application. So you just put the label, a user friendly label, so that even the developers, not you or someone who is working parallelly on this application, he or she can understand that okay, this variable name refers to employee location, this variable name refers to the employee number, and this refers to employee name. Now here again, this is the step 1, creating an i18n.properties file, creating the labels here and assigning the text to it. This is my step 1. Now step 2 is go to the detail.controller.js. here I'm going to this in my current project, and what am I going to do is, because I'm going to this particular file because I have my model definitions here, right? I have created my models here. See, now I'm going to show you. Till yesterday we have seen, is it possible to create multiple models? Now we are going to create a third model. This is my third model. Now in this model, guys, how do I create this model? Can anyone tell me what would be the syntax of this resource model? Anyone? Any wild guesses are welcome, guys. I just wanted to see how much aware are we with the APIs for model creation. Any wild guesses are welcome, guys. Any wild guesses? What should be the first statement here for creating a resource model? How should I write it? Can anyone write and show me? You can write in your chat windows. Anyone? Can anyone tell me how can we write? No one? Great. Where O model 3 equals new sap.ui.commons. No, it's not ui.commons. It's not ui.commons. ui.model. Perfect, Rama. A wonderful try. It's where O, let me create any variable called O model 3 here, equals new sap.ui.model.resource model, RNM capital here, guys. This is the API, guys. This is the API to create the object of resource model. This API we are going to use, sap.ui.model.resource model. This is the API. You can very easily find this in the SDK, SAP UI5 SDK. Remember that SAP UI5 SDK is the Bible when you are working on Fiori or UI5 applications, right? Now the second statement, I have to create, I have to load the data. Now when I say for loading the data, here for resource model, this particular statement is not required. Load data statement is not required because the resource model API, this method itself gives you, this particular API itself gives you an option to declare your resource model directly here. So how do we do it? We write here resource URL or bundle URL, bundle URL. We use here bundle URL. This is the property name, and I pass the path here i18n. The path of my i18n.properties file, guys, it is under web content, so I directly start this folder i18n /i18n.properties. This is the file name inside the i18n folder. Right now, this helps us to not only instantiate my resource model, not only create an object of my resource model, but at the same time it allows me to instantiate the model value. Say i18n.properties, I am just using the same the property here, bundle URL. You can just go to the SDK and check that. You can just go to the SDK and find it out there. Then what you have to do is, once you have your model declared here, your next step should be to set that model at the application level. Can anyone tell me the API to set this model at the application level? Anyone? How do I set this model at the application level so that my application, I can use this values in my application anywhere? sap.ui.getCode.set model. Perfect, Ramya. But remember, it's partially correct. Set model M should be capital. sap.ui.getCode.set model, and then see here the name of the object of the model I have created as oModel3. Now, how do I create a named model? I want to give a name to this. What should I do now? What should be the next step? What should be the next step here? How should I create this as a named model? I want to create this as a named model. Anyone? I want to create this as a named model. What should I do? Should I write something after this oModel3? You have to define. How do I define? What should I write? Can anyone just tell me what should I put here? What should be the syntax? Right after this oModel3, what should I write? Why in view? I have to create it as a named model. I have to create. So first of all, I have to give a name to this model. How do I give the name? And GT. What is that? And GT. Sorry, I didn't get that. What's that? And GT. Yes, that greater than. Yes, you are right. Greater than, that we do, the greater than symbol we use in the view when we are doing the binding. But my question is, how do we give a name to this model, guys? How do I give a name to this model? I want to give a name to this model. How should I give the name to this model? What is the way that I taught you to give a name to any model? When you are performing set model, what should I write now? I want to give a name, say i18n to this particular model. Where should I write that i18n? Should I go to the view and write with a greater than symbol? How the view will understand? What should I write? How should I write the name of this model? No one?
We need to define it in controller. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm already in the controller. Now what should I write here? See, this is the statement. I'm going to set at the application level. How do I set it at application level? A named model. What should I write here?
Bro, I'm not able to see the screen.
Okay. Okay, Gautam, are you on your laptop?
No, bro, I'm not. Like, my internet is not working, so I'm just on, just in call.
Okay, no problem. So yes, Ramya, I could see you're writing something called as JSON comma name. What is that JSON comma name? See, in the controller, we are writing an API called as sap.ui.getCode. This everyone remember? After that, we put .set model. This is clear to everyone, right? Now, till yesterday, we saw that we created one named model, my second model. So what did I do? I just went to this particular model here in this particular statement, sap.ui.getCode.set model, and then in the parameters I passed the object of that model, and I put a comma, and I gave a name here, comma I18N. That's it. That's it. How do we create a model? In the same model definition, you can just pen it down. You can, just remember it. Okay, the same syntax, step 1, step 2, step 3. All 3 steps are there. Only thing is, in the named model, you have to just put a comma in the last step, sap.ui.getCode.setModel, and then passing that model object, model3 here. After that, put a comma and give a name of your choice. So I have given it as I18N. That's it. Now, this model has been set on application level. This model is now available. This particular file, i18n.properties, will be available to my entire application. This file will be available to my entire application, and I can access this file using this particular name. The values inside this file, i18n.properties, I can access using the custom name that I have given, the named model, i18n. This is the named model I have given here, i18n. Now using this name i18n, I am going to access the values. So what should I do? Now I go to the view. In the view, let me just show you in my tables here, guys. You have seen the first table was a fruit table. The second table we created just below the simple form was the employees table. In the fruit table, we had the names called as, this fruit image. These were the text, right? And in the employees table, we have employee name, employee number, and location, right? So we will do this resource model. We will use this resource model to change the label, from the hard-coded text. I have hard-coded the text called as employee name, employee number, employee location in my app, in my source code, which is not the right practice, guys. We should try to minimalize the option. We should try to, reduce the number of times we do some hard coding in the source code. We should not, it is not recommended. We should not hard code as much as text. Okay, we should not hard code. So for that, I'm going to even now make my labels also as dynamic. Now my labels, see, for employee name, this is here, employee name in the label. For that, what am I going to do here is the text property of the label control, sap.ui.commons.label. We have the text property, and after the text property in double quotes, I have put employee name. Now this employee name I am going to replace with the named model i18n, which is my resource model. Now can anyone tell me what was the syntax to bind a named model? Here the named model name is i18n. Can anyone tell me how should I write it as? I18n, what is that ampersand GT? I think this ampersand GT is coming for greater than, I believe. Yes, that's greater than. Perfect. Okay, so I just put in curly brackets. And I'm performing a property binding, guys. See here carefully with this named model i18n. In the curly brackets, I have written i18n because i18n is the name of my resource model which I have created. Now after that, I put a greater than symbol, and then I write the property name. What is the property name that I have given in this i18n.properties? i18n.properties. I have created one variable called as xtit_emp name. This was the title, right? This variable xtit_emp name. So what am I going to do here is I am going to use this variable name after my named model name and the greater than symbol. So what I am going to do now, i18n greater than, and then I am going to write here as xtit_emp name, the title which I have given in i18n.properties file. I'm just going to use that. That's it. It's dynamic now. I don't have to every time code in my view. Say tomorrow my application is going to have 10 views. I don't have to remember in which all views I have to change this. I can reuse this property 100 times, 1000 times. I can use this variable name, emp name, anywhere from i18n file. Now for the second file, the value property I am going to replace. for the second column I'm going to replace the label here again. For the text employee number, I'm going to write here as in square brackets I18N greater than symbol, and what was the variable name? XTIT underscore EMP number. And similarly for the third column, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text value as, in curly brackets I'm going to put it as I18N greater than XTIT underscore its location LOC. So let me just cross check what variable name I gave. LOC, L capital. So this is the variable name I have given. Now in the view I am performing the binding. Okay, now I have done this. I have done the binding here using the resource model. I have performed the binding using the resource model here. Now what is the next step? Next step is to test my application. Before moving forward, let us quickly test what has happened after making the changes. Now this employee name, employee number, employee location, the text, the label which we are able to see, the column headers, employee name, employee number, employee location. Now I have just made it dynamic using the resource model. Let's refresh the web browser and let us see how does it show now. I'm going to refresh the web browser and let's see whether these names are coming still or not. We have to just authenticate whether these names are coming or not. If these names are coming, that means our binding is perfectly alright. These names have become dynamic. If it is not coming, that means something wrong. Now let me refresh the web browser and you could see here now the names are all there, guys. Employee name, employee ID, employee location. Now see here, it was employee ID here. Now let me change it to employee identity or employee identification number. I'll write the full text, employee identification number. Now I don't have to go to the source code of my view. What I have to do is I have to just find out the I18N file. I'll go to the particular I18N.properties file and I'll just replace the text here. I'll go to the property XTIT underscore EMP number equals employee identification. I'm going to replace it with from employee ID to employee identification number. I save it. I go to the web browser. Let me refresh the web browser, guys, and just keep an eye over here what this employee ID will be changed to. And it has been changed to employee identification number. Voila. Now guys, this concept of internationalization gives us two things. One, it allows us to make our application accessible in multiple languages. Two, it allows us the concept of code reusability. Now when I say code reusability, here actually it's not code, it is the value reusability, the text reusability. You are not going to write the same text 100 times. Say the employee number in your Fury application has to be used 100 times. Are you going to change 100 different times the value of that particular property? No. What are you going to do is you are going to assign one I18N.properties file. In that property file you are going to create a variable and just you are going to write the text there. Use that particular variable in your hundreds of files, any number. In idle scenario we don't have 100 files, but I'm just saying any number of files. Now I'm going to show you something different. As I told you when I started this internationalization concept, I told you about different languages, right? Now in that case I have to show you that you can create or use this application in multiple languages. Then only you should trust, right? I have just created the same in English language. How would you trust that you can use it in German or French or in any other language? So let me just show you an example with, let me use language, say I use Hindi. Okay, let me try to convert my application to Hindi. Okay, now the same application, I'm not going to modify my view or my controller, I'm just going to get into my I18 properties file. What am I going to do here is I'm going to create another file. Carefully listen here, guys. Another file we have to create, because I18n.properties is a generic file. As I told you, this is the default language file, default language, and we ideally create this generic file in English language. Now if you want to convert your application, say in Hindi language, what am I going to do is I'm going to create another file. I right click on this folder, click new, go to file, I give the name as I18n underscore. Now what should I write here? Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, English. What do I write? German, French, DE or something like that. So how do we get to know that? For that you need to understand the file naming convention for resource model I18n files. You have to know the code of that particular language. So let me just search for this code. I call it as ISO code for Hindi language. Let me see what is the code. These are the codes, guys. So let me just search for Hindi language. What is the code? So I'll try to search for Hindi language, the code. We have for every language a different code here, right? Now for Hindi language, see here in some website, W3 schools itself, the ISO language code. It's the internationalization standard. These are the standard language codes. So every language have some code. For example, English EN, Hindi HI, for German DE, French FR. So these are the language codes. Now this code for, let me show you the code for Hindi. Let me just search Hindi, HINDI, and you see here Hindi, the code is HI. You could see here Gujarati, GU. Let me just search for Tamil. For Tamil we have TA. Let me search for Telugu. For Telugu we have TE. TE is the ISO code for Telugu language. Now let me just show for other languages you can find out Turkish TR, Turkmen TK, Thai TH, Tibetan BO. You choose for Swedish SW, choose for any language. So I'm just going to show you here for Hindi. I put the code here as I18n underscore the ISO code for that particular language. So I put it as HI dot properties, the same properties. Now what I do, I save it. Now I have again here, what I have to do is I have to just put XTIT underscore EMP name. Now these are the header names, guys, that you have to keep as same. XTIT underscore EMP number, then XTIT underscore LOC location. Now carefully see here. Ideally we have multiple developers as well as some functional consultants working in a project. But for such language translations, what has happened in our IT industry, our managers, our industry or itself is very clever. They don't want to invest in finding the translators. They don't want to invest in that because Google has given them the flexibility. So write anything and convert to any language. So you have to become jack of all trades. You have to even go to Google Translator. I'll just go here, Google Translator, search for Google Translator. So being a Fiori consultant, guys, be ready. You have to do the translation also. Now this Google translation, say language, I just put up the first language as English. Let me write here as employee name. It will detect it as English, and I'll put the to do language as Hindi. The final language is Hindi. Now you could see here Karamchari ka naam. Employee name is Karamchari ka naam. Now what I do is I just copy this code Karamchari ka naam. In English it is employee name, in Hindi it is called Karamchari ka naam. I just copy this text and I just paste it into I18n underscore hi dot properties file, and you could see here some code has come. It is not exactly the Hindi text is copy pasted. It is some code like /u0915 again /u0930 like that. Now this is the ISO code for that particular text. Now I just search for employee number. Let me put it as employee number. employee number, Karamchari Sankhya. I just copy this text. Guys, you can use for any language. Okay, so there is no restriction on this. For employee location, let me just search for employee location, and you see Karamchari Sthan. This is the name. I just paste that code here. I save it. Now you could see here I18n_hi.properties. In this file, my Hindi translations are there. Similarly, I can create here 10 files for 10 different languages, but I should be clear in how many regions my Fiori application is going to be used, or my Fiori applications are going to be used. Based on that region, their languages, I can create only this resource model files, this I18n files, internationalization files. That's it. And then my application will be accessible in their own local language. Now what should I do? I don't need to do a separate binding for this. No, I don't have to. Only thing I have to do is I just have to create this I18n_hi, I18n_te, ta, or any language, DEFR, Hungary, HG, any language you can create. Now what should I do? I'll go to my web browser, guys. Now, ideally your web browser's language, based on your web browser's language, your Fiori app, it will automatically open in that particular language. Now my web browser, the default language is set as English. So to test it whether my application works in Hindi, what I have to do is, there is a small query parameter I am going to write in the URL. $SAP UI-language equals Hindi. For Hindi I am going to write HI. That's it. So what is the query parameter I have written? I am just copying that and writing in the presentation PPT. You can just see here, just given for Hindi, put it as, the file name is I18n_hi.properties, and then what is that? Query parameter for testing. This is for testing, guys. I put $SAP-UI-language equals HI. This HI is for Hindi. You can just replace it with any language. Replace this with any language ISO code. So guys, I have noted this in the PPT also for your later reference. You can just take out the printouts of this PPT in certain pages for practicing for your interview. Now I have just written that in the query parameter in my web browser. I press enter, and now guys, see what happens. For this employee table, don't see anywhere else, just focus on the employee table, the headers of the employee table, guys. Focus on the header, employee name, employee number. This is coming in English, right, for everyone? Now just focus here. I'm going to click on enter after changing the query parameter to SAP UI language equal to HI. I press enter, and now you see here what comes up. Here you go. You see your app in Hindi, guys. Karamchari ka naam, and you can see the names here. Karamchari Sankhya, you can see the employee numbers. Karamchari Sthan, you can see the location. Similarly, just put across. I quickly create another file here. Right click, copy new. I just put the file name here, I18n_. Now I put it as for any other language. The ISO code for, say I call it as German. I put German here. Now ISO code for German is DEU. I put it as D_DEU.properties. That's it. I click on finish. Now guys, this is an exercise for you guys. This exercise is for you guys. You have to show me in different languages. Okay, you have to show me in different languages. Now I'll just give another example here. I18n. See, in case you have missed it, let me search the ISO code. Let me take say from Hindi, let me take for ISO code for Tamil. Let me search for Tamil. Now the ISO code for Tamil is, let me try to find out the ISO code for Tamil. I go to this W3 school, search for Control F. I find here Tamil. Now Tamil is TA. I write here I18n_ta .properties. Now I just save this file here. Now guys, I'll just copy the same content, my variable names, xtit, emp name, and all those things. Let me just copy those, and I just paste it over here. Now let me search in Google Translator employee name, employee number, and location quickly. to show you how does it work. Google Translator, search it, Google Translate, and now let me put the language here as English. I'll just search for English here in the Google Translator. I put here as employee name and say in Tamil it is called as, I'll just put it across, TAM, Tamil. So here is Tamil, and this is something Panniyalar Payar. So I just copy this text and I put over here. Then I search for employee number. The conversion in Tamil comes as, you can see here, Uliyar N. Sorry if I'm pronouncing wrong. And I put it here, and then I search for employee location, and then it comes as again Panniyalar Itam. So I just copy it as from here, I just paste here. Now I save this file. Now guys, again how do I test it? I go to my web browser. There the parameter, I call it as query parameter, question mark SAP UI language equal to HI. Instead of HI, I put it as TA. Now guys, see here carefully. You can make your app, in your own language. You just press enter and see your this particular UI app, and you can see the title of the table. See the employee name, something in Tamil it is coming up, the employee number, the employee location. So you can change it to your own local language. You can convert it to, you can convert it to Devanagari, Braj, you can convert it to Telugu, you can convert it to any language, German, French. Test it, see it. Why I'm saying your local language? Because you can authenticate that. You can say, okay, it is valid. Okay, for other languages it will be difficult for you to just find out and say. So now this is an exercise for you guys. Make very small app, okay, where you can have your table of employees. You make a simple form, and I want you to put the labels in your local language, rather it is any language. Put in your local language and see how a beautiful, a delightful experience it brings in. It gives you the the feel that this Fury is not becoming a bottleneck for anyone. Okay, so any questions in today's topic, guys? Any questions in named models, resource model, and the query parameter? No questions? No questions? Okay. Any questions?
Sorry, I'm just involved today.
Yeah, sure. So no other questions, guys. So guys, with this I'll end up today's session. Thank you very much for joining. Let's connect the same time tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow I'll send you the meeting invite, guys. Tomorrow, I believe it's an occasion. It's a festival, so may not be tomorrow. I'll give you a meeting invite in case if it is there. Okay. I'll send you the meeting invite. So with this, I wrap up today's session. Thank you very much for joining, guys. Bye bye.